Hola a todos, a todas, a todes. Soy Mónica Bonillo, directora ejecutiva de Wikimedia Colombia, y desde Wikimedia Colombia nos sentimos muy honrados y honradas de poder participar en este espacio en la versión de este año de Wikimania. El día de hoy queremos compartir con ustedes una presentación titulada Wikimedia, Biodiversidad, Derechos Humanos y Medio Ambiente. Lo que queremos hacer es compartir con ustedes los logros acuñados en la implementación de la campaña local Wiki por los Derechos Humanos y la Biodiversidad, que estaba enmarcada en la campaña mundial Wiki for Human Rights. Eh, estos logros pues son gracias al trabajo del equipo de Wikimedia Colombia, pero por supuesto queremos también destacar las contribuciones y la participación de aliados, de aliadas, de organizaciones, de colectivos, de líderes y de lideresas, aparte de las instituciones que nos apoyaron y hicieron posible que desarrolláramos todas las actividades que desarrollamos en la campaña local. En relación a los logros, quisiéramos destacar seis. El primero, pues, es la recuperación del interés de comunidades de base del sector público y del sector privado en relación al medio ambiente y la biodiversidad, pero articulado por los proyectos Wikimedia y por el movimiento Wikimedia. También a partir de las actividades empoderamos a comunidades locales como son un colectivo de huerteras de San Cristóbal y de una huerta local. Estas dos comunidades locales se encuentran pues en Bogotá. También creamos y generamos espacios para la creación de conocimiento consciente a partir de otros lenguajes, específicamente del lenguaje circense de mujeres huerteras. Eh, También tuvimos dos actividades, una editatón titulada Editatón por el Planeta en el marco de la alianza que teníamos con el Ministerio de Educación, y una editatón pública titulada Wiki por los Derechos Humanos y la Biodiversidad. Por último, pudimos construir una guía para subir imágenes en Wikimedia Commons desde una perspectiva ambiental. Vamos a desarrollar cada uno de estos puntos y quisiéramos empezar con el tema de recuperar el interés de las comunidades de base. Entonces, como ya les veníamos diciendo, gracias a esta campaña, tuvimos la oportunidad de trabajar con múltiples actores. Por ejemplo, del sector privado, trabajamos con uno de los periódicos más importantes del país, El Espectador. Del sector público, trabajamos con el Ministerio de Educación y también con algunas instituciones educativas. De la población civil, trabajamos con mujeres huerteras, lideresas, también con la comunidad Wayuu, con wikimedistas en Wayuu-Naiki, con la comunidad educativa, con profesores y pues con diferentes ciudadanos y ciudadanas. En relación al empoderamiento de las comunidades locales, tenemos dos casos particulares, que es el caso de las huerteras de San Cristóbal y el otro caso es la huerta de Mayra en La Calera. Estas dos huertas se encuentran en Bogotá. Para el caso de la huerta de San Cristóbal es una de las localidades con menos parques de la ciudad. Es la número 5 con alto índice de necesidades básicas insatisfechas y en este caso lo que pudimos generar fue una alianza con un grupo de lideresas hacen circo comunitario. Y la segunda alianza la hicimos con una huerta, bueno, un colectivo que es una huerta que queda en La Calera, Y básicamente con lo que hicimos con ellas fue que pudimos visitar la huerta, pudimos recorrerla, pudimos conocer, pudimos documentarla fotográficamente. Muchas de las imágenes pues las subimos a Wikimedia Commons y adicionalmente en esta última actividad pudimos crear el artículo del páramo de las Mollas que pues no se había creado y que es un lugar ecosistémicamente importante para Bogotá. En relación a la creación del conocimiento consciente, acá destacamos una actividad que realizamos en la Feria del Libro. El espectador tenía un stand en la feria y nos invitó a participar en un espacio y justo a partir de la alianza que ya habíamos tejido con las mujeres circenses, lo que hicimos fue articular y hacer una presentación que por un lado le dio un contexto de qué es Wikimedia Colombia, qué hacemos en Wikimedia Colombia a las personas que participaban de este espacio. Y por otra parte, gracias a Circo pudimos hacer una presentación de una obra titulada Basurolandia. Después de esto, lo que nosotros hicimos fue entregar semillas nativas de perejil y cilantro en la lógica de promover la semilla libre y propia como ese conocimiento libre y propio. Respecto al impacto en esta obra de teatro, participaron más de 100 espectadores y también el mensaje detrás de la obra de teatro es el de reciclar y el de reconocer la importancia del medio ambiente y de nuestras acciones pues en las ciudades. Finalmente, pues quedó una atmósfera de alegría y aparte promovimos como otros espacios y otros lenguajes para dar un mensaje a la ciudadanía. Respecto a las editatones, pudimos trabajar con profesores de bachillerato de diferentes partes del país, esto en alianza con el Ministerio de Educación. Pudimos mejorar y crear artículos relacionados con biodiversidad nativa, como es el caso del artículo del río Arzobispo, y es importante que los profesores desde su rol incentiven a la niñez y adolescencia respecto a la preocupación por estas problemáticas medioambientales. Y esto pues lo pudimos también como lograr en estos espacios. Además, además de esto, también pudimos participar en uno de los editatones, participaron huerteras y huerteros de Bogotá y propusimos 4 temas que son sui generis y no han sido desarrollados, como el rol de la mujer y la feminidad como referentes protectores de la vida y la biodiversidad, la biodiversidad y animismo, la diversidad étnica y su vínculo con la biodiversidad y las alianzas multisectoriales como las huertas comunitarias en las ciudades o las alianzas productivas ecoamigables entre campesinos indígenas en la ruralidad. Por último, tuvimos el honor de contar con la participación de wikimedistas en Wayuunaiki, quienes hablan Wayuunaiki, una de las lenguas indígenas más habladas en el país, y lo que ellos hicieron fue mejorar el artículo del río Ranchería, que también ahora se encuentra en Wikipedia en español. Por último, pues como les decíamos, en el marco de la pasantía, tuvimos un pasante en Wikimedia Colombia quien avanzó en la construcción de una guía para subir imágenes a Wikimedia Commons con enfoque ambiental. Entonces, ya llegando a las conclusiones, la primera es que los proyectos Wikimedia potencian discusiones sobre temas vigentes como la importancia de cuidar el medio ambiente y la biodiversidad creando redes humanas. Em, la siguiente conclusión es que los proyectos Wikimedia pueden generar conciencia cuando se conectan con problemáticas locales. Acá, por ejemplo, nosotros encontramos los vínculos humanos con otras comunidades locales, pero que son ricas en capital humano y biodiversidad. Y hacer este ejercicio nos permitió conectar y articular alianzas, también logros y conseguir metas y objetivos en conjunto. Otra de las conclusiones es que los proyectos Wikimedia visibilizan los aportes y la creatividad, eh, po- y pues sí, la creatividad. Entonces, en la medida que se incluyen otras voces, eh, entendiendo que también en los proyectos Wikimedia hay una brecha de género, lo que nosotros estamos generando y lo que también concluimos es que integrar a más mujeres nos permiten tener mejores relaciones y conocer mucho más los contextos. Lo que buscamos es tener esfuerzos por llevar el conocimiento a la acción, apoyando la construcción de ciudadanías que son respetuosas con la diversidad y con lo que somos acá en el país. Eh, Elaboramos artículos, generamos espacios de participación, unimos esfuerzos con líderes y lideresas y esto pues lo materializamos en estos logros y hallazgos que también nos permiten en este momento tener alianzas mucho más fuertes con diferentes organizaciones. Y ya para cerrar, quisiera compartir una breve introducción a lo que fue la obra de teatro en el stand del espectador y les agradezco mucho por el espacio. Espero que disfruten mucho Wikimania y seguimos trabajando juntos y juntas porque los proyectos Wikimedia sigan impactando a las sociedades y a las personas con las que venimos trabajando. Muchas gracias.
Hello, welcome to Making a Movie with Wikimedia Commons, the story of the last line. This is a lightning talk. It will be fast, it will be short, it will be punchy, and it is the story of how I made a short documentary using incredible resources from Wikimedia Commons. I'm really excited to be with you all. I hope that if you've made a film before, you are thinking about making another one and you're going to make it with Wikimedia Commons resources. And if you've never made a film before, you're feeling like you could. Let's go forward. My name is Zach Mckeon. I have been a Wikimedian since 2005. And today, I work at the Wikimedia Foundation as the Director of Brand. I'm also an artist and a filmmaker, a graphic designer. I really try to work as much as possible with free-to-use, public domain, and archival material. And I also try to release the things that I make as public domain or Creative Commons assets. I endeavor to emphasize the word creative in Creative Commons. And this image is from a conference that happened in Chandigarh, India. It was an amazing opportunity for me to travel there when I got to teach a short introduction to photography. So that's why there's so many cameras in this image. Since 2019, I have been making short films from archival material. This is material that may be in the public domain or released by government agencies. It might be work that has had a copyright expire. And fundamentally, this is fun work to make movies from because it's kind of forgotten. People have failed to remember the stories that are embedded in all of this old footage. In each of these three films, I've crafted a story, I've cut the material together, and my amazing fiance has created the music for them. She's put the compositions together so that they have incredible soundtracks. We've been really lucky to get these films into 11 film festivals in 7 countries and counting. Unfortunately, we have never been able to attend any of the film festivals because of COVID-19. So like this conference, a lot of these film festivals that usually would be in person happened instead online. Now, let's talk about Wikimedia Commons. At 87 million free-to-use files, Wikimedia Commons is the world's largest free-to-use collection of audio and visual materials. It's just an incredible resource. And every day, people put more and more stuff into it. Incredible images, great archival material, incredible videos, audio files. It's just amazing to see the things happen. Wikimedia Commons is most often used for Wikimedia projects, things like Wikipedia, Wikivoyage, and Wikidata. You know, it's like used most often within our own system. But I want to tell you, Wikimedia Commons is also an extraordinary resource for filmmakers. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about how I made a short film recently, almost entirely from Wikimedia Commons material. The story begins right here. I found myself on this Wikipedia page in December of 2021. It tells a sad story about a lion subspecies that has gone extinct in the wild. Hidden on this page is this incredible info box, an image with this caption. It's about the last photograph known of this subspecies, and it included a link for the photographer, Marcelin Philandrin. Like any other Wikipedia reader,
here's what I found.
I went ahead and clicked that link. And I found a short Wikipedia article on English about Marcelin. But better, I found on Commons a world of his creative work, things that had entered the public domain and been digitized by Wikimedians to be accessible for anyone, anywhere in the world. Marcelin's imagery documents Morocco in the 1920s and 1930s. He took photographs from planes mostly, but also loved to take photographs on the street and of landscapes. As I'll tell you, and you'll see in the film, he also had a penchant for taking photographs of more adult subjects, nude images, erotic images, things that we might even consider pornography today. When I couldn't find images from Marcellin Flandrin, I actually went searching through online archives, libraries, bookshops, and more to purchase original works by Marcellin Flandrin. And when they would arrive, as this one did in February, I would go ahead and add it to Wikimedia Commons by digitizing it myself. In fact, I'll show you, I have a book of his work right here. And in this book, near the back, is something really beautiful that I found, which is a photograph of the photographer himself. Here, it's just gentle, so I'm going slow. Here we are. Here's Marcellin. So I bring it into view for you all. This is the image now on Wikipedia of Marcellin Flandrin. We didn't have a photograph of him. I found it in this public domain book. I digitized it and I added it to Commons. Overall, I collected 20 images, of which 17 were from Wikimedia Commons. So that's 85%. And I put them into storyboards like you might for a slide presentation. And I wrote a script to guide the whole story. I hired a narrator to read the script, and my partner, my fiancée, she crafted a musical score to accompany the work. It all came together when we premiered the film in April of this year in San Francisco at the Green Environmental Film Festival. We were delighted, honored to premiere it there. And we have 2 more places to premiere the film so far, one in New York City and one in Los Angeles. We're really hoping to show it more places in the world. And after we finish screening it at festivals for people who love environmental topics and documentary topics, we'll do what I have done with the other 3 films, which is release it online for anyone to see and use and borrow from. With that, I'd like to call to the audiovisual experts. I'd like to show you this film. I'd like to do a premiere here at Wikimania for the international premiere, the worldwide premiere for anyone who wants to see this film, not in one market, but anywhere. I'll go quiet for 3.5 minutes as we watch this film.
It is a haunting image. At the end of a long rocky canyon, a single lion stands, facing the sun. It's a male. We know from his mane. And because the lion was photographed high in the Atlas Mountains, we know that this is a Barbary lion, native to this region. This image is from 1925, and it is the last confirmed sighting of a Barbary lion in the wild. The photo was made by a man named Marcellin Flandrin. He was born in French Algeria. During the First World War, he learned how to take photographs from planes. In Casablanca, he applied his skills to city scenes and landscapes. He was Morocco's first aerial photographer and innovative image maker. He sold books and postcards. He offered portraits and commissions. He also made porn, exploitative stuff, with an Orientalist view of North African women. But mostly, Marcellin is known for the lion. The Barbary lion lived across northern Africa for millennia. It was hunted by pharaohs 3,000 years ago. It was the lion feared by ancient Rome, used to fight gladiators and in public executions. When people say, "throw them to the lions," they are referring to these lions. Framed as the ultimate killers, centuries of hunting eradicate the subspecies. Marcellin was 36 when he joined an airmail flight from Casablanca to Dakar. We can only imagine the trip. How long were they in the air? What was the route? When did he notice the lion? Did he take multiple photos? Was the lion really alone? We do not know. We do not know when Marcelin realized he had captured history. We cannot rescue or recover the Barbary lion. And yet, thanks to Marcelin Flandrin, we can still see it.
Thank you all for watching that. I'm going to try to move us on to the final slides here. When we premiered that film in April this year, it was a really exciting moment to actually open for a Friday night film festival audience. That was the first time that my partner and I were actually able to be in person for a film festival event. And at the end, when we were taking questions, a lot of the questions were about the source of the material. So it was a chance for me to talk to film lovers and filmmakers about Wikimedia Commons and how much is available there. So I want to say here, just as I said at that moment, that this film would not be possible without Wikimedia Commons and the people who digitized work and added work to that incredible global repository. You know, while sometimes we don't know where the work that we're making is going, I wanted to celebrate those folks who have taken time to contribute this archival material from around the world, because, you know, with Marcelin Flandrin, the subject with his passing, the work became distributed around the world, just as I have some of it here and have become a Marcelin Flandrin collector. And thank you all for the kind notes in the chat here. I will pass on the credit. The music, I think, is much stronger than the film. It's a whole different topic. If we can go to the next slide. I don't know where we are. Yeah, there it is. Commons made this possible. Let's go forward one more, please, on the slides. Let's see if I can get us there. Perfect. I want to let you all know that I put all the images that are on Commons and in use in this film here at a page off of my own Commons account. So if you want, there's the short link there. You can find some of these works that are from Wikimedia Commons there, in case you want to make use of them. And in particular, of course, that postcard, the postcard of the last Barbary lion, that's an extraordinary, I mean, very evocative image. It truly is haunting. And that's the entire story really centers on that. Overall, I want to come back to the power of Commons. It's a platform that people are always adding their points of view to, something that makes us understand and see the world better every day. And I know that it has been so vital. It is the core of so much of the visual knowledge work that we do here in the Wikimedia movement. But I want to celebrate the fact that it can be a creative resource as well. And in the future, we may be in a position to offer it to creators and filmmakers and see what they do with it. I get kind of excited thinking about a possible build on the Wiki Loves work as something like Filmmakers Love Wiki, where they actually show us what they make with these resources. Thanks so much. My name is Zach Mckeon. It's been great to be with you. You can find me on my talk page, or you can drop me an email. Really appreciate your time. Have a great Wikimania.
Hi, my name is Andrew Lee, and welcome to the Wikimania session on REN, a year in review. REN is the Wikimedians in Residence Exchange Network, and we meet monthly to talk about our various activities as Wikimedians in Residence or those working with professional organizations. You don't have to have the official title of Wikimedian in Residence, and you don't have to be compensated for your work. It's really a network for folks to exchange ideas and experiences on how to better work with external entities and the Wikimedia movement. So typically a lot of us work in the area of GLAM, galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, but we're not limited to that. We actually have folks who work with universities, with botanical gardens, or any types of folks who are interested in memory institutions and cultural heritage. So we hope you'll enjoy this series of talks discussing not only topics you might have heard of, like how to run editathons or how to have better impact, but also some newer topics, perhaps how to work with Wikidata or how to work with structured data on Commons and how to bulk upload content to the Wikimedia projects. So hope you'll enjoy these, and we welcome any feedback that you might have, and we hope you'll join us in discussing many of these topics. Thanks a lot.
Dear friends, welcome to this very short presentation of the mutually beneficial collaboration between Wikimedia and WIPO. So my name is Florence Devoir, also known as Anter. In February 2022, I started a part-time paid position as Wikipedian in Residence at the World Intellectual Property Organization, also known as WIPO. So what is it? WIPO is one of the 15 specialized agencies of the United Nations. It was created to promote and protect intellectual property, and its activity include hosting forums to discuss and shape international IP rules and policies, providing global services to register and protect IP or resolve disputes, administer 26 international treaties on IP matter. But what is more interesting for us Wikipedian is that they make available a general database on the topic, and they produce various reports, statistics, indexes, graphics on the state of IP globally and in specific countries. A year ago, WIPO started working with several Wikipedians on a pilot. And the first outcome of the pilot was the first outcomes were very interesting. So they decided to go a step further with a long-lasting Wikipedian in Residence, me. So in the past 6 months, I have been working with over 10 teams of WIPO experts to facilitate the reuse of their content on the English Wikipedia, on Wikimedia Commons, and Wikidata. All of this has been done online through emails, shared documents, online meetings, but I had the joy to visit them in their office in Geneva last week. The first Wikipedia in Residence programs were launched in early 2010s, and the Wikipedia in Residence have been numerous since then. And collaboration come in very different shape and forms. So I wanted to share a couple of important elements about my own residency. First, we must say that WIPO is truly an amazing source of information. The content they provide, in particular through their databases and reports, is completely aligned with our work. And a lot of it can be reused on Wikipedia articles to improve them. And the cherry on the cake is that all WIPO publications are under a CC BY license since 2017. So it has been particularly easy for me to reuse their content. However, I would note that during my residency, I found out that their website were not under a free license, and the work I did on an article using WIPO website content was reverted and hidden for being a copy view. I reported the issue to WIPO, and at an amazing speed, the decision was made to change the license of the WIPO website to put it under CC BY. I was informed of this last week. It's very brand new. I should also mention that at the same time, WIPO is conducting several efforts to convince other UN agencies to embrace free licensing for their publication. So hopefully it will become easier in the future to collaborate with UN agencies. Third, to talk very briefly about content, the improvement I made mostly concern either articles related to WIPO divisions or articles related to IP itself or articles on technological innovation. So topics we have to deal with include, for example, patents, IP policy, cyber squatting, collective right management, and so on. But it also includes articles such as emerging technology, artificial intelligence, assisting technology, more recently, fuel cell vehicles. In some cases, the experts write most of the content to add to Wikipedia, and I boldly edit them according to our own expectations, and I explain them why. And I can tell you they had no idea how detail-oriented we are. That was a discovery for them. In other cases, the WIPO experts try to be editors, and my role is to train them and coach them. It's not so easy. And yet in other cases, the experts simply point me to resources, and I fully decide what to do with them, what to write. So all of this flows well. There is so much useful content, and it is a joy to work with experts and write to the point without fluff. It's pleasant to have people who understand what a source is and why adding references to an article is something important. Yeah. So to conclude, what are the next steps? Essentially 3 next steps. First, we will continue to work on the content for Wikipedia, Commons, Wikidata, and hopefully Wikiquote as well. We will also automate the addition of references to WIPO publication to Wikidata. And the third one, we intend to expand the work being done in English this year into French and Spanish languages. So yes, we will be looking for Spanish candidates for a Wikipedian in residence position at WIPO. Stay tuned. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hi, my name is Jamie Flood. I'm the Wikimedian in residence at the United States Department of Agriculture's National Agricultural Library. I wanted to go over some of the equity and editing programming that we've had over the last year. In 2021, Secretary of Agriculture, Thomas Vilsack, announced new priorities and strategic goals for the department while reinstating equity training and programming. These priorities include diversity and inclusion, nutrition and nutrition security, and climate change. Since then, NAL's programming has focused on issues of equity related to food and nutrition and land access and loss issues for historically excluded communities. Our key collaborators in our efforts have been from the National Agricultural Law Information Partnership, which NAL facilitates, and our 2 partners are the National Agricultural Law Center in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems at Vermont Law School. They've been key players in helping us find research and secondary publications that we're able to use to edit around these topics, as well as providing us with speakers, if not they themselves speaking. Quickly, I do want to say as an aside, if you're interested in agriculture or agricultural law, even if you aren't in the United States, please still reach out. We can connect you with people closer to you if we're unable to help for whatever reason. This year, we have hosted a number of events, probably the most events that we've hosted so far. We have hosted 4 events this year, and we will be hosting a 5th in September, and potentially another one, and we're hoping to do a few more next year. This year, our first event was on heirs property and featured experts Mavis Gregg of the Forest Foundation and her own company Air Shares, and Francine Miller of CAFS, which is the Center for Agriculture and Food Systems. Heirs property is a key contributor to land loss for African Americans and Indigenous peoples on tribal lands here in the United States, but it also affects Latinx folks in the Southwest and families in Appalachia. Heirs property occurs when someone dies without a will, or which is intestate, and they leave land and property to multiple heirs. When this happens, it's often left without a clear title, which can affect ownership and leaves families vulnerable to predatory developers who are able to swoop in and force sale of that land and purchase it for a much lower price than it's actually worth. Second, we had an event on food equity featuring the Reverend Dr. Heber Brown III of the Black Church Food Security Network in Baltimore, Maryland. And with him, we discussed local food systems and food access, as well as food apartheid, and the meaning of food and agriculture to Africans and African Americans. As an aside, I do want to say that all of these events have been recorded. We're working on getting those recordings up on our website, but if you're interested, please let me know, and I'm happy to share those with you. Our third event was on nutrition security and featured Dr. Sarah Bleich, the Director of Nutrition Security and Health Equity at USDA, Dr. Maya Moroto from Partnership for a Healthy America, and Dr. Tanya Augers-Collins of the National Institute for Health, and Leilani Nelson, again from CAFS. We discussed the emerging topic of nutrition security and how nutrition and food security is often because of the lack of access to healthy food in particular, not just food in general, and contributes to health disparities across communities, particularly historically excluded communities. And then we also covered what the government, the federal government, as well as these nonprofit organizations are doing to help address issues of nutrition security. And then finally, we recently had an event on cooperative agriculture featuring Terrence Courtney of the Federation for Southern Cooperatives and Doug O'Brien, the CEO and president of the National Cooperative Business Association. And they discussed the importance of cooperatives for improving land access, and as well as access to knowledge, information, training, equipment, and capital for those involved. Doug also talked about the procedures that are needed in order to set up a cooperative. I also wanted to go over some of the things that we've learned over the past year, which has honestly been a lot. One of the key things we've learned is that great speakers and other educational opportunities outside of just editing really helps draw in more people. By changing up how we offer these events, our attendance has grown from about 60 people to 150 to 180. Focusing editing efforts also makes learning how to edit feel less daunting. And what I mean by that is I've shortened our work list. I used to create work lists with 30 to 50 articles on them, and now I focus on usually 10 to 15, and that will usually include 1 to 2 new articles, but mostly focused on content that already exists. Another aspect of that is including notes around the articles that need to be edited, with some ideas of what could be edited in that article, as well as references that could potentially be used in editing that article. I've also shortened our editing training and really base it more on what the audience might be looking for. So when I'm working with students, I focus on writing new articles. When I'm within USDA, I focus on adding citations and doing grammar edits. We've also are seeing Wikipedia as a vehicle for knowledge equity. There are issues for historically excluded communities that aren't well covered on Wikipedia, and I think it's important work that could be done, but it's essential to pull the references for those from a wide variety of sources to fully create the picture of that issue or related issues, if you will. In the coming year, we'll be expanding our collaborations and topics, doing more with heirs property and nutrition security, and looking to cover topics like climate change, climate and environmental justice, urban agriculture, and agricultural workers. Please feel free to reach out to me. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Lawrence and I'm a Research Fellow in Open Knowledge Systems at RMIT University in Melbourne, Australia. And I'm also a Wikimedian in residence 1 day a week at the ARC Centre of Excellence for Automated Decision Making and Society. The centre was established as a multi-institutional research centre in 2021 to study how automation is impacting society, including in news and media, transport and mobility, health and social services. And it's interested in looking at this from a range of perspectives, including data, machines, people and institutions. The centre director was interested in having a Wikimedian in residence, Julian Thomas, as he has a strong understanding of the importance of Wikimedia as a platform across the knowledge ecosystem, and also of the importance of Wikipedia as a source of knowledge, particularly on complex research issues, such as what the centre was studying. The aims of the residency were a bit vague at first, and I must admit it has been hard to find clear guidance on what a Wikimedian in residence role should be. So this is definitely something that we need to have a think about, particularly in relation to research centres rather than GLAM institutions, and particularly research centres in the social sciences and humanities. So based on my year of engaging with researchers at the centre, I've come up with around 6 key aims and outcomes. So a key part of it has been awareness, increasing the awareness and engagement with Wikimedia platforms by ADMS researchers, training such as editathons and so on, content, the profile of the centre, analysis and exchange. And I'll just briefly go through some of the things that I did as part of those areas. So one of the first things to think about was the profile of the project itself. This itself was a little unsure where and how to set up a project page. So in the end, I went with the GLAM project and added a page there. I put a disclaimer on my own page. I added a page on ADMS as a centre on Wikipedia so that people would understand where it fitted in the system. I also added ADMS researchers and partners to Wikidata, and was then able to do some visualizations with that area. And to do that, I needed to add Australian Research Council grant IDs. So there was a bit of work in just setting up the project itself. One of the key areas that Wikimedians in residence often work on is training. So I ran an editathon supported by Wikimedia Australia in October. We got about 11 editors to come along to that and edited 20 articles. So that was good, but it was difficult to engage academic researchers in that kind of basic training. So I then did fortnightly drop-in sessions for about 2 months, and that was much better to be able to have individual conversations with researchers about their projects. A key focus has been on pages and content on Wikipedia. So we set up a page on automated decision making and a page on digital inclusion, because neither of those pages were actually there. And there's been a lot of effort to engage across other pages that already existed, such as algorithm, digital divide, crowdsourcing, even something like domestic violence, because technology-aided violence was a key thing that one of our researchers was looking at. Online advertising, and quite a few others that I've been looking at and editing over time, and supporting the experts in the centre to also edit these pages. I became more and more aware of the importance of actually presenting Wikimedia as a platform and helping researchers, particularly researchers who are studying the internet, to understand how Wikimedia operates as a platform. In May this year, I ran a seminar called Automating Wikimedia, Open Knowledge, Linked Data and Search, and involved Professor Mark Sanderson, who's a search engine expert, Liam Wyatt from the Wikimedia Foundation, and Professor Heather Ford at the University of Technology, Sydney, who's a Wikimedian and has also just got a significant research grant to look at Australian content on Wikipedia. And then finally, one of the key areas has been knowledge exchange, which I think of as a sort of package of just by virtue of being in the role, opportunities develop kind of off platform. So advocacy has been a big area. I've supported and contributed to submissions on open access, copyright and online digital safety to the Australian government. I've helped with partnerships with other GLAM organisations such as ACME that's interested in engaging with Wikipedia more, and was also already engaged with the centre. I've done presentations and outreach to other universities that might be interested in having a Wikimedian in residence, and developing guidelines for Wikimedian in residences with Wikimedia Australia, and working on projects and plans for the future of many of the researchers at the centre. So that's just a quick overview of some of the things that a researcher, a Wikimedian at a research centre might think about doing. I hope it's useful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Helps. I'm the Wikipedian in residence at the library at Brigham Young University, and this is my presentation on why Wikimedians in residence should edit Wikipedia. And in case you're not familiar with paid editing, there's a bit of a controversy over it, but this chart from Andrew Lee's excellent presentation on paid editing from 2014 illustrates that being paid doesn't necessarily mean you're conflicted. You can be conflicted and unpaid, and also unconflicted and paid. And I'm not getting into that now, but happy to talk about it later. So what's the problem with Wikipedia that Wikimedians in residence are helping? Well, Wikipedia has these content gaps. What is a content gap? Here's an example. Here's a list of books that have won the Caldecott Award. It's an award for picture books issued by the American Library Association. And you can see that for these early years, there's pages for all of the books, even the honorable mentions. Here's a list of books that have won the Coretta Scott King Book Award, and you can see that not as many of the books have blue links. This is the Coretta Scott King Book Award is an award for children's books written by Black authors and or illustrators, also issued by the American Library Association. So this is just an example of a content gap. It's pretty common with children's media that's older for some reason, and also for works by people of color. So why does Wikipedia have content gaps? Well, we don't really know why. It's just that no volunteer has written it yet, but we can make some educated guesses. We know there's a contributor gap. Most of our Wikipedia editors are white men who are interested in the internet, and the interests and therefore content created by typical Wikipedia editors doesn't really reflect the literally encyclopedic needs of Wikipedia. And one reason more women may not be editing Wikipedia, according to data feminism, is that they don't have as much time to edit. Another reason put forward by the study, Anyone Can Edit, Not Everyone Does, Wikipedia's Infrastructure and the Gender Gap, is that the legalistic framework that Wikipedia is based on can be unwelcoming. There is also an interest gap. We sort of touched on that. The people most interested in the topics that are boring to the current editors are not being written. One interest gap I noticed is that there aren't very many books on fine presses. These are like really nice books that are made with an old-fashioned letterpress, and for some reason those kind of people aren't also interested in editing Wikipedia, but I might be I'm already working to fill that gap. I made a page on the Kelmscott Press. And there's also a source gap. News sources kind of cover some topics and not others, and researching topics outside of recent popular culture is a more specialized skill. And also some sources are inaccessible to a typical volunteer. And if you're working in a library, you have access to lots more sources than a typical volunteer. still speaking on sources, that why would the source gap explain the content gap? Well, Wikipedia distills biases present in the sources that we're using, including the lack of those sources. Okay, so back to Wikimedians in residence. They can and are helping to fill those content gaps. And Wikimedia Foundation has defined these content gaps. They've organized them into categories. They looked at all these studies to sort of figure out what the topics are. And the topics with content gaps that I'm going to be discussing today are cultural background, gender, important topics, and language. And you'll notice important topics, it's just defined as differences in coverages of topics that are of common interest. So well, we'll come back to that later. Okay, cultural background and gender. This page on Teresa Clybourne was created by Mia Cariello, who had a paid internship with the Smithsonian. She created this page and 17 others and added over 1,000 references to various pages. She also created the page Asian Americans documentary series and edited many pages on African American culinary experts and indigenous activism. Jamie Flood created this page on Shavonda Jacobs Young, and Flood works as a Wikimedian in residence at the U.S. Department of Agriculture National Agricultural Library. She created this page on Shavonda Jacobs Young, who was who is the first woman and person of color to be the Undersecretary of Agriculture for Research, Education, and Economics. And I've also done some work on the Mormon culture pages, actually not the Mormon culture page itself, but pages like this Mormon fiction page, which there's less of a gap now because I've been doing so much work on them. Here's important topics. Remember, these are just like topics that are important, but no one's done work on, so sometimes they're kind of boring. But the discovery and early development of insulin, I think we would all agree this is an important topic that maybe we wouldn't work on in our free time. Ji-Yun Alex Jung at the University of Toronto, he developed multiple pages on this. And another important topic is workplace exposure monitoring. And John P. Sadowski, who works at the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, created this page. Another example is this page on Ashok Gadgil that Mary Mark Ackerblom has improved extensively. She did some more technical reporting on his research, but I just wanted to highlight this Darfur Stoves project because I thought it was interesting, and I don't often read about sometimes like the projects on women that scientists are involved in don't get as much coverage. Language is the next one. Tochi Precious is the Wikimedian in residence at the Moleskine Foundation, Moleskine Notebooks. And she translated this page for the Ijele Masquerade into Igbo, which is an indigenous language in Nigeria. And she also added the Makua language of Mozambique and the Lagoli language of Kenya to the incubator to possibly get their own Wikipedias. Thank you for watching.
Hi, welcome to the Wren Year in Review for the Met Museum at Wikimania 2022. I'm Andrew Lee, the Wikimedia strategist.
I'm Jeannie Choi, General Manager of Collection Information at the Met.
project is young Africans from ages 18 to 27. Now, when you come to the Wiki Africa Education Project, there are two different programs under this project. We have the Higher Education Initiative, and then we have the Afro Curation Program. On the Higher Education Initiative is an initiative by Mckeon Foundation with Fondazione Aurora as its partner. And the aim of this initiative is to train African language speakers at higher education institutions, both in Italy and Africa, to create content relevant to their fields of study and expertise in African languages, therefore reducing global intellectual inequalities. So the program trains the participants to be autonomous knowledge producers, and it gives them a deep foundation of the Wikipedia platform, the Wikidata platform, the Wikimedia Commons platform, and it also follows them during the process of content creation and production. The next program is the Afro Curation program. And for the year 2021 and early 2022, we worked under the theme of Who We Are. Now, the Afro Curation program is a cultural and inspirational experience where participants feel empowered to create knowledge about their culture and identity, and redressing the historical bias, and also taking ownership of the digital narrative. Now, the next I'm going to talk about is the outcome of the Wiki Africa Education Project. Now, for this Wiki Africa Education Project, between the year 2021 to the first half of 2022, we had 10 university partners in Italy and Africa. I'm going to be mentioning them later on. We had 5 cultural partners, which included Etale Publishing in Mozambique. One toolkit was developed and translated into 3 different languages, which include Swahili, Portuguese, and French. And the essence of this is to give a foundation for the translation of this toolkit into other African languages. Now, across the project, or across this time, we had 600 participants, and over 2,000 articles were produced on Wikipedia, Wikidata, and which also including uploads to Wiki Commons. Now, during this time also, 14 languages or 14 African languages were covered as well. And these languages included Wolof, Twi, Swahili, Zulu, Xhosa, and a whole lot of other languages from various African countries. And during this period, 2 new language Wikipedias were created. The Lugoli language Wikipedia was added to the incubator. Lugoli is a language from Kenya, and also the Mckeon language of Mozambique was added to the incubator. Furthermore, 1 volunteer community was created in Mozambique where there was non-existent before, and this volunteer community is to help in the content production in the Mckeon Wikipedia, which is a language spoken by over 6 million people in Mozambique, but has no digital footprint until the Afro Curation project. And during this time, we also had we partnered with 3 Wikimedia user groups, which includes Wikimedia Tanzania, the Tree Community user group, and Wikimedia South Africa. And also we had volunteers from 4 user groups, which includes Brazil, Portugal, Nigeria, Italy, and so on. In terms of universities, we partnered with University of Naples Federico II, we partnered with Politecnico di Milano, di Milano, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Italy, Sapienza University, AMREF, and AMU University in Kenya. Highlights of the year. for me, the highlight of the year was getting the Mckeon Wikipedia, the Mckeon language Wikipedia into the incubator, because the Mckeon language is, like I said, is a language spoken by over 6 million people in Mozambique, but had no digital footprint prior to the Afro curation program. That's to say that there were no blogs, no articles like digitally written in the language, apart from Bible translations of the language, and also creating a volunteer community in Mozambique, which is working to keep the language Wikipedia alive. And another highlight is the language revitalization, which the Wiki Africa Education Project has shown in the areas of adding the Logoli Wikipedia into the incubator and also revitalizing the Mckeon language Wikipedia. Next, I'm going to show you the participants' feedback. There were lots of feedback, but I'm just going to share one. This is from Palmyra. She's 24 years and she's from Mozambique. She said, participating in the Wikipedia training was a very fascinating experience, and more so because it's a local language marginalized by some who unfortunately still carry the idea of the existence of language superiority. And Palmyra is a Mckeon language speaker from Mozambique. Now, what does the future look like for the Wiki Africa Education Project? We are hoping to partner and get involved with more wiki communities. Like for the first phase, there weren't so many, but for this year and next year, we hope to partner with more. And we also hope to do more with Wikidata, get more descriptions and items written in more African languages. And we also hope to have more African voices to contribute knowledge in English, French, and various African languages, and also change Africa's narrative on Wikimedia projects. Because automatically, or because like we all know, there are actually more articles written about the city of Paris in France than Africa, the continent Africa as a whole. Hence, we are working to change that narrative. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And if you're looking forward to get involved, or you're thinking of how to get involved, let's discuss. Just reach out to me at theprecious2@gmail.com. Thank you.
Hello all, my name is Mike Dickerson and I'm the Vice President of Wikimedia Aotearoa New Zealand, Giant Flightless Birds on the wikis. And I'd like to tell you about a project called the West Coast Wikipedian at Large. First, what a Wikipedian at large is, in contrast to a Wikipedian in residence. And secondly, the two separate projects we've run now on the west coast of New Zealand and why we've chosen this approach. I thought I dreamed up the term Wikipedian at large when I applied for a project grant in 2018, but it turns out a couple of people had used it before. But the idea was to run numerous different Wikipedian associations with organizations throughout the country, 35 in fact in the end, rather than be a Wikipedian in residence at just one. And this was because the general level of engagement and understanding with Wikimedia projects in the GLAM and other institutions in New Zealand at the time was actually quite low. People didn't really know or understand or appreciate what they could do by working with Wikimedia projects. So I spent a year traveling the length of the country from north to south, trying to raise public awareness, training, set up regular meetups, organize bulk photo uploads, and show organizations why they should be taking Wikipedia seriously. And it was a great but very, very grueling experience, but I could see the advantage of it in a large dispersed population. At the end of the project, I wound up living in Hokitika on the south island of New Zealand, about halfway down, on the west coast, which is very low population density, only 35,000 people spread over nearly 600 kilometers. So there's no large institution that one could be a Wikipedian in residence in. I pitched to Development West Coast, which is a business development and tourism support organization, to perhaps fund me for a couple of months at a time to try and improve the coverage of the West Coast in Wikipedia. And they could see that there would be, business and tourism benefits from this. So they were happy to support me in it. So I ran the first Wikipedian at large on the West Coast in 2020, and I'm halfway through the second one. The way these are organized is that we recruit a team of volunteers. I've got 10 working with me at the moment, most of them all around New Zealand and a couple in Australia. We touch base regularly and work on projects together. Mostly I'm working from Hokitika on the West Coast, but I've been doing field trips for several days at a time to different areas, mostly to take photographs of missing gaps in Wikipedia or Wikidata, but also to meet with locals and get access to print materials and resources that aren't online or even in libraries. And this has been really valuable to get people to produce their photo albums, their media clippings, and their tiny small press publications that are otherwise really hard to find. The organization of it is by area. Volunteers have a list of Wikidata items and Wikipedia articles that need work and can work on them in the usual way. But we try and focus for 2 weeks at a time on a particular area, and we try and coordinate our efforts. The first time through, we coordinated with daily reporting. This was a bit too much pressure on volunteers, we found, trying to come up with something every day to report. So we switched to weekly reporting this time around. And that's working much better. Of course, we do have a project dashboard that logs a lot of these achievements, but the volunteers find this actually quite useful to be able to ask questions and chat with each other as part of the reporting to help each other out or summon assistance if needed. I also report to the volunteer team with postcards. And these are virtual postcards that appear on their talk pages every week or 2 weeks. They always thank them. We go through what has been achieved in the last couple of weeks, particularly highlights like getting 400,000 views for a video in DYK, which was amazing. Let them know what the key tasks coming up are, what we're going to be focusing on, where I'm going to be and what I can do to help. We illustrate it with a photo taken by a volunteer. And it's, of course, the totem insect of the West Coast is the sandfly. So that appears on the stamp. We also have a little badge that we can send to them to say thank you if they've been participating especially well. So part of the reporting is the photo uploads. We try and do galleries and detailed reporting of how many different commons categories we've created, how many articles we've created at the end of the project. So this can all be shared with Development West Coast, who have been really great. They've put out press releases. They've gotten coverage of this in all the local papers. They got me onto breakfast television to talk from my home about Wikipedia, and even a camera crew appeared out in the field to film me editing Wikipedia live by a lake. You couldn't see all the sandflies that were eating me alive at the time. So this has been, I think, a real success and a really potentially useful model for Wikipedian residents. It's not your traditional Wikipedian sitting in an institution, but actually out in the field, doing photography, working with locals, but being supported by a big team of volunteers. I'm happy to chat with this if anyone's got questions or would like to perhaps run this in your own patch. Easy to get in touch with me. Thank you very much.
You cannot hear me? Hello, hello, hello? Okay. And we're live, I assume. That looks like we're live. All right. Hello, welcome everyone to this this session. These are the Implementing Lightning Talks number 2, and I'll share my screen visible. I hope that works out. Yes, this seems to work out. Okay. So my name is Cornelius. I work in the Movement Strategy and Governance team, and we have normally Joop, my colleague Joop, who is the Movement Strategy Grants Specialist, would host this session, but she lives in Nigeria, so it's a bit late for this session. So I'll start just quickly why we're doing this, what does it mean, implementation. So the Wikimedia movement is in a strategy process since 2017. And back in 2020, the 10 recommendations and with more than 40 initiatives were published. And now we're in the second year of implementation, and a couple of a couple of affiliates have started to implement to make the movement strategy tangible, to operationalize, and to start working in it. And on each of the regional days here at Wikimania, we are doing such implementation lightning talks where we would like to showcase what Wikimedians are doing in each region to working on implementation of movement strategy. So yesterday we had already a session today, and tomorrow we will have another session. We will have 3 speakers, but it seems and Douglas has arrived as well. So we have 3 speakers today, and we hope that these lightning talks could be a source for inspiration and also collaboration. So you connect with those, or connect with our speakers afterwards, or maybe you like what they are doing and you like to adapt it in your region or in your country or in your context. That's the idea of these lightning talk sessions. All right, so let's get started. And our first speaker is Lucas from Brazil. So I'm handing over to Lucas.
Thank you, Cornelius. Well, hello everyone. I'm Lucas Piantar. I'm talking from Brazil. I've been a Wikimedian since 2018, and I'm currently working at Wikimovimento Brasil as a movement strategy analyst. First of all, I'd like to thank the movement strategy and governance team for this invitation and for the facilitation of the session. It's a pleasure and an honor to share the work we've been doing on implementation of the movement strategy within the Portuguese-speaking community, more specifically in Brazil. I'd also like to thank my community for all the work we've been doing together to make sure that our future as a movement will be equitable and diverse. And finally, to greet Douglas and Flavia, whose work I'm looking forward to getting to know better today. Cornelius, could you please pass to the next slide? Thank you. Well, since I talked about an equitable future, I'd like to start with the research we did last year. For 6 months, we have investigated the perceptions of the Portuguese-speaking community about strategic topics such as equity in decision-making and governance. We wanted to know what the possibilities and the challenges for the implementation of a Lusophone hub were, so we ran a consultation process with different stakeholders. In this consultation process, we interviewed mission-aligned organizations, met with individual community members, and with user groups, and applied a questionnaire to the community. Finally, we published a report which is available in Portuguese. The data we collected during this process helped us to identify some challenges that were beyond the implementation of a hub. In the questionnaire, for example, more than half of the respondents told us that they were accessing information about the movement strategy for the first time during our research. In the meetings, members of our community told us that they would feel more linked to the movement strategy if the discussions, meetings, and documentations adopted the Portuguese language as one of the possibilities, besides English and Spanish. They also said they would like to find ways to have deeper knowledge about the different phases of the development of the strategic process, since there are many documentations, pages, and ongoing activities. In this sense, people we interviewed and met with told us that capacity building was important for them and their peers to connect with the Wikimedia movement and have a better level of achievement in their projects. Also, capacity building could be one of the main possibilities offered by a Lusophone hub. Finally, we found that before implementing a hub in our community, we needed more people engaged in the Lusophone strategic process. There was some preliminary work to do, such as building a strategic process from our perspective based on our needs, potential challenges, possibilities, and resources, and finding the ways to bring more Lusophone people to the strategic process as a whole. In other words, we had an agenda, we wrote a screenplay, but there were not enough leading figures. So, what to do? How could we make sure that from now on we would have a strategic process being developed from our perspective based on our needs, potentials, challenges, possibilities, and resources? How could we find the people to do it? So we stepped back. Our decision was to develop a capacity building program focused on the movement strategy implementation. The project's name is Calibra, acronym for Brazilian Leadership Capacity Building in Portuguese. This project is run by Adriane Batata and I, and has the support of a volunteer committee formed by other Brazilian Wikimedians who are Chico Venâncio, Erika Zellini, Flávia Doria, who is here with us today, João Alexandre Pechansky, Tila Capelleto, and Valério Melo. The goals are, on the one hand, to develop a training program for Brazilian Wikimedians focused on implementation projects within the Lusophone community, and on the other hand, to establish a network and a culture of strategic discussions in our community. These goals are linked to the movement strategy recommendation number 6, invest in skills and leadership development. We are at the beginning of the project, in the moment we are calling the first phase, and our main work right now is on the priority initiative number 32, global approach for local skill development. What we want to do in this phase is to develop a culture and provide a structure where Brazilian Wikimedians may have discussions, meetings, and exchange information about the work they're doing, also their challenges and motivations. Those works, challenges, and motivations, allied with practical activities, will help in answering some important questions about the form and content of a training program focused on the movement strategy implementation by Brazilian Wikimedians. Cornelius, could you please pass to the next slide? Thank you. The learnings I'd like to share with you today, they result from Wikicon Brazil 2022, which happened on July 23 and 24 in São Paulo, when we ran different activities with Brazilian Wikimedians. These activities were a questionnaire, a strategic discussion, and a training session, which we designed to answer some important questions that are guiding our process towards the development of the training program. The goals that guided our activities were to find a common idea of leadership within the Brazilian Wikimedia community, to acknowledge the importance of the regional context to take into account that Brazil has continental dimensions, to cooperate with networking among participants, to identify people interested in developing a practice of discussions about movement strategy, and finally, to identify challenges to the implementation of the priority initiatives by the Brazilian community. For the strategic discussion section, we plan a discussion based on the challenges for defining leadership within the Brazilian context, where different regions have different cultures, needs, and resources, and that is still centered in the Southeast, more specifically in São Paulo. While we were looking for characteristics, actions, and abilities that could help us to define a Brazilian Wikimedian leadership, the participants engaged in a discussion about the viability of finding this common definition and suggested that we could take another path in order to design the capacity building plan. They suggested that it could be more productive if we did a mapping of what challenges are being faced by the people who are already working with movement strategy related topics and projects linked to the priority initiatives, and try to find what capacities should be built in order to help them achieve their goals, develop their potentials, and work for the implementation of the movement strategy within the Brazilian community. And the key point for developing the potentials of our community would be the regional context. Acknowledging the regional challenges could help us in understanding who are the leaders of our movement, what they do, and what they need to keep on their good work. However, people seem to be resistant to the words leader or leadership because they feel uncomfortable to let themselves be defined this way. We also learned about the main interests of our community. In the survey, we gave respondents a list and asked them to select initiatives they were most interested in. Climate Week initiatives, partnerships with educational institutions, and increasing the diversity of people and content within the Wikimedia movement were the ones that generated the most interest from the respondents. When asked what could help them to more satisfactorily realize their interest in those initiatives, most of the people chose the option of more time available, followed by attending to capacity building programs, acknowledgement of the opportunities, and more resources. However, we still need to work on connecting those interests with the movement strategy and contextualizing the way they are related to the priority initiatives. That's why we asked the respondents to leave their contact information with us so we could reach out to them and schedule more meetings to keep on discussing our challenges, interests, potentials, and their connection with the movement strategy. And 89% of them share their contact information with us, which is leading us to the next steps of our process. Cornelius, you could please pass to the next slide. Thank you. Well, Calibra's goals follow Wikimovimento Brazil theory of change and previous and ongoing engagement with the strategic process. Wikimovimento Brazil has been facilitating discussions on the movement strategy locally and participating in global meetings to discuss and define the implementation process. We also have members in the regional committees, the MCDC, and regularly attending to SWAN meetings. Our most recent and ongoing initiatives, such as Wikicon Brazil 2022 and Wikimovimento Brazil's own strategic process, have been developed according to the movement strategy principles and recommendations, working on bringing the perspective of an affiliate from the Global South to the Wikimedia movement as a whole. As I said at the beginning of my talk, in the short term, our goal as a project is to develop a culture and provide a structure. Our Brazilian Wikimedians may have discussions, meetings, and exchange information about the work they're doing, also their challenges and motivations, and all of its connections with the movement strategy. We want to provide the community with resources, knowledge, and practical experiences that will work on the one hand as a means to start a capacity building process around the movement strategy, and on the other hand as a source of important information we need to gather to develop the capacity building plan. This plan will be addressed for those people, and we want to make sure that it effectively addresses their needs. In the midterm, our goal is to have the plan published by February 23, so February next year, and then effectively use it to build capacity in our community. In the long term, we would like to see the new movement strategy implementation grants projects being implemented from Brazil, and working together on developing a strategic process that effectively addresses the needs of the Brazilian and the Lusophone communities. So, well, this is the end of my presentation. I really appreciate your attention and patience, and I hope to hear from you if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Lucas. Obrigado. If you have any questions to Lucas, please write them in the chat so we can read them out. Unfortunately, we cannot invite you to speak here verbally, but yeah, any questions to Lucas? In case I have one question saved, but let's see if there's someone asking. Doesn't seem the case. Lucas, one question from my side. You have said that there seems to be resistance around the word leadership or using the word leadership. Did you discuss or did you see alternative wordings that came up in the Brazilian context?
Thank you, Cornelius. This is a very good question. Yeah, well, it seems that talking about developing capacities or possibilities for potential increasing, for example, seem to be more likely to have success because, it seems to me that people already are doing things and occupying positions of leadership in our community, but maybe they don't feel that they are leaderships, or maybe it may feel like they are I don't know, they are trying to make people believe that they are something that they may not be. But well, I think that maybe talking about those kind of words or initiatives or some practices that people could do as leaderships instead of talking specifically about leaderships, it seems to me that is a good alternative.
Thank you for responding. Yeah, and I'm just asking also because I remember similar conversations also in Germany, where generally leader is a complicated term. So that's why, yeah, but I think our German colleagues didn't find a good solution for this yet. Anyway, if you have further questions, you can also queue them. We can also queue them, and we can also ask Lucas later. We can at the end, if there's still time, we can come back to Lucas and ask him if there are any questions. So let's move on to our second speaker, Douglas. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Cornelius. Thank you, Lucas, for that. And thank you, everyone, for watching us. My name is Sebagala Douglas. I'm a member of the Wikimedia Community User Group in Uganda. And I'm glad to share with you our work on initiative 6, on recommendation number 6 of the movement strategy implementation. Yeah, so Let's Connect is a foundation community-led initiative that seeks to meet recommendation number 6 of the movement strategy implementation. And one of the things that we are trying to address is promoting human connections and mutual support, as well as developing an environment which is open for colleagues to share within the Wikimedia space. And it's basically looking at sharing skills with their peers. So that's mainly the objective of Let's Connect. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we've had quite a number of lessons, but I'll mention just a few of those. So we've realized that there's a lot of untapped potential, untapped skills within the movement, and there's a need to connect the challenges or skills that are faced by members within the movement, because you realize that a given community might have a challenge, but then there's a solution to that challenge within another community. So that's something that is important as a learning point. Then the third one is like the program can help the growth and expansion of the Wikimedia movement. This has been realized through the fact that there are some members who have subscribed to the Let's Connect program, but then they didn't know that there existed Wikimedia affiliates within their regions. So we've had a total of 140 Wikimedians who've registered for the program. But then you realize that some of them belong in given geographies, but they did not have an understanding of any Wikimedia activity. So the Let's Connect program has enabled them connect to their respective affiliates, thereby growing the network. Next slide, please. Yeah, so one of the things that we are looking at for the future goals of our project is to connect with similar initiatives. Like I've just learned that this is something that's connected to what Lucas is doing in Brazil. But also there's the initiative on the capacity exchange pilot. So we're in contact with the members involved in that initiative from Wikimedia Deutschland, and we are looking forward to see how we can be able to make the dots meet, because this is the capacity exchange pilot is something that links to the initiative that we are doing. Um, so it is initiative, you can connect it with initiative 33, which is skill development infrastructure. But then ours, like the Let's Connect program, links to Initiative 31, global approach for local skill development, gathering data, matching peers, mentorship, as well as recognition. So in the future, we look forward to connecting with similar initiatives. Then secondly, we hope to share resources and skills from the program. We are already doing this, but we hope to share more. We are already doing this through the skills directory. All the members that have signed up for Let's Connect have been identified as learners or sharers, and their skills have been outlined on Meta. So there's a Meta page which outlines the skills and learners plus all their details. Actually, they're displayed on Meta, and this like enables connections to happen, whereby anyone is free to check out profiles of given Wikimedia members, and then they can easily connect to learn a given skill, or they can connect to share a given skill with their peers. Then the other thing that we hope to do in the future is to evaluate, because it's always a learning process. We hope to evaluate, iterate, and adapt our work. This Connect is in the just completed the first phase. We are entering into the second phase, which we hope to review and be able to adapt accordingly. And anyone is welcome to join the Let's Connect program. If you have any questions, I'll be looking forward to answering them. But also, I'm part of the Let's Connect working group. So in case we are not able to answer some of the questions, the working group will be able to get back to those questions. Thank you so much. Over to you, Cornelius.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you also for being awake at such an hour, because it's I don't know what's the time where you live at the moment.
Yeah, so it is 3:14 a.m. I'm in the East African time zone.
Oh, thanks so much for joining. Yeah, it's not exactly a North or South American initiative, but thankfully Douglas jumped in, and I want to ask my colleague if there are any questions. That doesn't seem to be the case at the moment. Well, as I said, we can go back to Douglas, and in the end, if there are questions, just write them in the chat box, and we'll take note of them and read them out loud as soon as they are available. Now, Flavia, let's go to you. Your video looks very good now. No filters, no filters applied today. So go ahead, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Cornelius. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, Lucas. And thanks, everyone in the chat. I can read you all. So I'm going to start presenting myself. I'm Flavia Doria. I'm from Wiki Editores LX and also the Wikimedia Foundation. My pronouns are she and her. I'm speaking from Brazil today. I'm a journalist. I'm graduated in social communication, and I am a Wikipedian since 2020, the beginning of the pandemic. This is when I was born as a Wikipedian. I'm a member and organizer at the Wiki Editores LX, an informal user group for women and non-binary editors who edit about women and non-binary people content. I'm also an ambassador for the Wikimedia Foundation for the Lusophone community, and I'm a member of the Leadership Development Working Group. I'm a proud member. I can see now my face. I have my filter again, but let's keep going. Cornelius, if you can pass for the next slide. Thank you. So what's happened here is I started to realize there is a lack of accessibility and inclusion of underrepresented language communities in our movement. So coming from the Lusophone community, um, I'm Brazilian, but I also live in Portugal, and I keep this. I keep I'm very present in both countries, and I have this vision about the Lusophone community as a very marginalized community member. There's also a lack of knowledge about the movement itself, and of course, the movement strategy and the available resources. And I think this is a problem, especially when I'm working with women and non-binary people and people who are already marginalized in our movement. This inequality just get bigger and bigger if you don't know much about the movement, if you don't know much about the resources. I also started to see this lack of knowledge about the movement, the resources and possibilities. They lead inequality within the Lusophone community. So it's not just about my community, my language community, in comparison to other communities, but within the Lusophone communities, we have different levels of inequalities. Oh, I also want to comment that I put this image in this beautiful picture that we took in a disathon that we organized. The Wiki Editores LX organized it. Um, and I just put this image here because sometimes I think it's good for us to see who we're talking about when we're talking about who are the marginalized people in our movement. We have a specific vision about this. So if you can pass the next slide, please, Cornelius. So what have you learned? So in this process of thinking about all these inequalities and all these problems, and I start to think a lot about the need we have for translations, of course, because we're talking about a communication and information gap. And I realized that translations alone don't solve this existing communication information gap. At the same time, not providing translation increase these inequalities within the language community itself, because you can imagine that in the Lusophone community, that's my example, but you can apply in any language community. We have different levels of knowledge, of English knowledge. We have people who are very fluent in English, people who struggle a lot, and people who don't speak English at all. So when we talk about having all of our materials and information in English, it reinforces these inequalities within our communities, because we have people who who keeps being benefits from the fact that they speak English. So people communicate differently, and therefore they need different communication channels and approaches. So it's not just about is this in English or not. It's also about how we're communicating the information we have. And I realize method does not work for everyone, especially if we're talking about marginalized communities and if we're talking about women, non-binary people, people who represent a minority in our movement, because meta is very specific, and usually the people who likes to work with meta are more experienced users. And it's not just about that. It's not just about the platform itself or its ways, but what type of content Meta it's good to provide. We need different levels of information for different audience. Okay, so more target adapted communication means also providing the same information but adapted to different degrees of familiarity. And I found out that talk to the community about hubs, leadership development. It's very hard if they don't even know what movement strategy was. And that's what I started to face in, and that's why I started to think about communication. That's why I started to think about translation, because I realized these people need to be integrate in the movement itself. We have editors who edit for years on Wikipedia, but they are not connected to the other to our sibling projects, to Wikidata, to Commons. But the most important, they are not connected to the movement itself. Sometimes a lot of them don't quite understand what is the movement, what is the foundation, what is the difference, which role in one place. So this is a communication problem. This is a problem about the distribution of information and for different audiences. Newcomers need a specific type of communication. More experienced users need another type of communication. So I understand that we have to go back to basics in certain communities, like the Lusophone community, so that they can keep peace with the global movement. Cornelis, could you please share the next one? So what I am working right now, and I think it's interesting to say that my project is an individual project. So I'm working on that alone, and I hope that inspire other people, because sometimes we think that we need to be affiliated to someone, or only user groups can make projects like that, and that's not true. We can do some individual in an individual project like the one that I'm doing. So right now I am translating existing material, and I am creating new materials about the movement strategy, specifically focused at the Lusophone community, of course, my community, and those with few knowledge of the movement. That is the most important thing for me. I want to talk to those who have very few knowledge about what the movement is. uh, the translation of newly created material to English also for eventual use by other communities. So I'm translating a lot of materials. I'm translating the movement strategy playbook, which is great. It's a very good material, but it's a very long and extensive material. So I am transforming and adapting it to a more approachable content, and I'm doing it in Portuguese. And also, I am translating this Portuguese material that I'm creating to English so people can use it in any other language community. This is we have here a slide of that material. This is a slide about the ways of collaboration in the movement based on the movement strategy playbook. The content is present, as I say, in Portuguese and in a more appealing way as well. It's adapted specifically for a newcomer audience. And the way I think this material is in a way that it can be suitable also for presentation. So you can use it in any kind of introduction into movement strategy, anytime you need to do a presentation, you will have a very educational material about what is the movement strategy, and it goes deeper and deeper in every slide. And so about my goal, I guess my goal is to increase accessibility and access to information and resources to marginalized groups in the Lusophone community, because the thing is about accessibility of information is that we might think the information it's already there, but we need to do an active work to connect the people who really need this type of content in a more basic way or in a more deep, profound way. So yeah, I guess that's my goal with study. And also my goal is that other people can apply this logic in their own community language. And I guess that's it.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Flavia. Thanks a lot for
Thank you.
presenting. Wonderful to see how what you're doing, and I think so. Yeah, as you say, it's so important to actually customize or to tailor our existing, yeah, almost traditional communication to reach new audiences. Wonderful to see that. Are there any questions to Flavia? Let's have a look. That I got it. Yeah, I got one question that was, I think, directed to Lucas before, and then there's a follow-up question that is based on it. So let's ask first the question. I'll give the question to Lucas. The question is: has the Portuguese-speaking community decided not to implement a hub? I think you have worked as well on the Lusophone hub, on the Portuguese-speaking hub, right? So could you share what the community said about this, or what the status of it is? Lucas?
Well, I'm not sure if I understood exactly what the question was, Cornelius. Maybe the audio of my computer.
Sorry, maybe it's my I
not
don't know.
very good.
My question was, what's the status of the Portuguese-speaking hub that was planned, or the idea that existed of having a hub for the Portuguese-speaking communities?
Well, this having a Lusophone hub is something that I may say that for myself, I still believe that is something that's very important for us to have in mind. But well, as I said, we stepped back because seems that before having a hub, we still need to work on some other things. And as Flavia said, something that happened during the research we did was that when we talked about hubs, it was not very clear for our community what could a hub do, what could not a hub do, and even the word hub was something that was questioned. Like, what what does it say to us when we talk about a hub when we're speaking Portuguese? So, what kind of experience do we want to have? What kind of experience we need from a hub, right? So, I wouldn't say that there's a specific decision that there won't be a hub implemented, but I would say that maybe we didn't have, and that's what we want to build, the tools, the right tools, or conceptual tools, or even experience to work on it more effectively and decide what could we do with the hub. So I wouldn't say that there's a decision, but maybe we still need to work on some things before taking this decision more specifically. Hope I
Thank you.
answered
Thank
your
you.
question.
Yeah, I think the question was well answered. One thing is, of course, also what your community wants. I think on the other side is also in general, it is not clearly defined yet what a hub is or what a hub could be, or what what are the possibilities of a hub. So I think this is about still being discussed in movement strategy spaces and events. I got a question from Joao to Flavia, which is based on the hub question as well. Joao asked, would a hub for the Portuguese-speaking community create the structures that is needed to sustain or to support the kind of work you're doing as a foundation contactor?
Thank you. Thank you, João. This is a very, very good question, and it's also connected to Luca's. My work and Luca's work are very different and connected at the same time, and it's. I want to share that the reason why I started to do this translation project was because I want to understand what Hub was, and I started to have these conversations with my peers. And I realized in my community, we have this a very complicated and not discussion, but it was very complicated for anyone to try to explain what hub is, because a lot of people didn't even know what the strategy is. So, as I said in my presentation, how can I talk about hubs if they don't know there is a movement strategy going on? If there is a plan, there is a vision, we need to share this vision first. We need to share this plan, and so we can debate with everyone, because we keep talking about hubs with this small amount of people who understand what it is. But as I am very concerned about the marginalized people in our community, how can I say the hubs are going to do this work if I don't know if my community wants a hub? So I think first we need to do this communication and information, to develop this work to inform everyone, so they can so they can speak about it, so they can form their own opinion about hubs. And I don't know, maybe I do care about the sustainability. Of course, this is just one person doing a small amount of work in terms of communication and information. But maybe this is the beginning of a conversation. Maybe before today, other people want to join me in bigger projects, and we can work on the sustainability. But I think that uh, bringing hubs to this conversation, it's to cut some steps that we need in our specific community, the Lusophone community. Maybe it works for other communities, but I don't know about ours. But that's just my opinion.
No, but
Thanks.
thanks. Thank you, Flavia. There is a question also then already also related to what you've talked about. Like, are you? I didn't understand right when did you start, but like, can you already see more people engaging or engaging in movement strategy based on the information or based on the content you have already provided in Portuguese?
Yeah, I think that the next step on this project should be exactly should be it's like it's a little meta, but it's to communicate that we have communicational materials, because now we need to talk about those people who want to be involved in the strategy. Because why do I care about strategy? Because I'm a woman from the global south. When working on these matters, when you work about gender gap, when you work on minorities or marginalized communities, strategy is very important. Strategy is good for us. So of course I'm interested in strategy. And I think a lot of people who do similar works are going to be very interested in this debate, in this material. They need to be informed about the strategy.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Flavia. I got one question with around 3 minutes left, and so, but there's one question for Douglas, and the question to Douglas is: do you also feel there is a lack of understanding about movement strategy in your community? What about having a hub? Is that discussed or known? Douglas, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah,
And
thank you.
2 minutes, sorry, no,
Cornelia. So,
and 2 minutes, please, because then we need to finalize. But go ahead, please, sir.
all right. I'll try to use 1.5 minutes. So yeah, it's a 50-50 understanding about movement strategy in our region. I can say 50-50 because we've held community engagements within the region and also within the community that we come from, like in Uganda. In 2019, we had the East African Summit, Movement Strategy Summit. But then it's been like 3 years down the road. So there might have come new Wikimedians who might not know about movement strategy. So that's why I say it's 50-50. And then about having hubs as a discussion, yes, it's worth it because one of the initiatives that we discussed and we realized that the community is interested in was skills development. And there's a sort of understanding that a hub might be something that houses the different skills within the movement or where most members can connect. But besides that, more importantly, we have a research project that we intend to do as the East African affiliates about hubs. So we'll uncover and realize more once that research project has taken place. Thank you.
Thank you, Douglas. I think that's a wonderful transition to my last slide, if it was, because thank you to these three speakers. Thank you to Lucas, to Flavia, and to Douglas. Tomorrow we have the next lighting talk session, and in that lighting talk session, I think Anthony from Tanzania will also talk about the East African hub idea, if I'm correct. So please join us tomorrow. On August 13 from 1910 to 20 UTC. You can also look at what we have showcased yesterday. And today's slides are available on Commons. And if you're interested in grants, have
Thank you, guys. Thank everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Boa noite, pessoal. Bem-vindos a essa sessão da Wikimania. Estamos aqui para falar como a gente organiza um Wiki Ocupa pelo WMB. Eu sou a Sandra Soster, sou gestora GLAM e Cultura do WMB.
Olá, pessoal. Meu nome é Célio Costa Filho. Estou aqui junto com a Sandra. Sou um wikimedista de longa data, cofundador do WMB e atualmente também gestor administrativo da organização. Bom, pessoal, para a gente falar como organizar um Wiki Ocupa, a gente pode começar dando uma ideia geral da atividade, né? O Wiki Takes a City, ou Wiki Ocupa uma cidade, compreende um conjunto de atividades que busca aprimorar e criar conteúdos livres sobre uma determinada cidade, um determinado município, como nós chamamos aqui no Brasil, dentro dos projetos Wikimedia e também de projetos correlatos. A ideia, claro, é sempre disseminar a cultura de produção de conhecimento livre, especialmente fora dos grandes centros, né? A ideia do Wiki ocupar uma cidade, ela faz mais sentido em cidades fora dos grandes centros urbanos ou um pouco mais distantes, cidades onde o conhecimento livre tem uma maior dificuldade para florescer, para se disseminar, digamos assim. Então, a ideia é que nos próximos instantes a gente fale não só sobre a ideia geral do Wiki ocupando uma cidade, o Wiki Takes a City, mas principalmente de como o WMB pontualmente pensou como estruturar essa atividade, né? A gente tem promovido isso pelo menos uma vez por ano desde 2019.
Bom, como o Célio já começou a explicar, a gente escolhe uma cidade tendo alguns critérios, e um deles é preferencialmente fora desse eixo das grandes cidades, que aqui no Brasil se conforma nos estados do Rio de Janeiro e São Paulo. E, na verdade, qualquer cidade pode receber um Wiki Ocupa. O que a gente entende como atrativo é quando ela tem uma grande quantidade de bens tombados e tem poucas fotos e informação livre disponível. Além disso, poucos verbetes dentro da categoria do município e peculiaridades culturais ou a presença de grupos subrepresentados nos projetos da Wikimedia.
Bom, uma parte principal do Wiki Takes a City, por mais que a gente tenha autonomia para conduzir algumas das atividades, uma saída fotográfica, desde que feita em locais públicos, é algo que a gente consegue organizar por si próprios, mas a ideia é que a gente faça algo mais estruturado e o mais proveitoso possível. Então, um aspecto muito importante é você contatar previamente parceiros locais, né? Um primeiro ponto seria localizar possíveis pessoas wikimedistas, né, ou pessoas relacionadas à cultura livre dentro da cidade, para que elas sirvam de ponto de apoio ou também um ponto de contato com outros possíveis parceiros ou instituições culturais desses municípios, né. E uma segunda tentativa, um segundo ponto de contato é buscar diretamente essas instituições culturais municipais. Então, é possível observar isso buscando cadastros dentro do IBRAM, no caso do Brasil, ou eventuais acervos que estejam disponíveis online, redes sociais de bibliotecas municipais, de museus municipais. Em geral, são instituições culturais que têm uma presença online um pouco mais restrita, um pouco mais diminuta, digamos assim, do que as grandes instituições culturais dos grandes centros urbanos. É um pouco mais difícil de contatar esses parceiros, mas a dificuldade, o que nos move, a ideia é exatamente essa, fazer um esforço ainda maior para que as peculiaridades, as idiosincrasias, as características de pequenas cidades ou do interior do Brasil apareçam de modo adequado, de modo referenciado dentro dos projetos do Wikimedia. E para isso também, é claro, sempre fazer uma chamada geral para participantes, fazer a divulgação de formulários online entre os membros da comunidade. Eventualmente a gente pode não saber que existem wikimedistas nas proximidades, e essas chamadas gerais são sempre uma grande oportunidade para a gente conhecer mais o movimento Wikimedia no nosso país, ou na nossa região, de modo mais específico. A divulgação do evento, também em redes sociais, também é sempre um atrativo para atrair pessoas que, a princípio, talvez nem sequer conheciam a questão do movimento do conhecimento livre, dos projetos Wikimedia, mas que nada impede que elas passem a se tornar parte do movimento.
Eu vou aproveitar para complementar algumas questões. Em relação a parceiros locais, essa busca online por instituições para a gente fazer o contato direto, ela também leva em conta instituições que já tenham parte do acervo digitalizado e colocado online, né? Seja num website, seja numa plataforma como o Tainacan, ou mesmo nas redes sociais, porque demonstra que a instituição tem uma vontade de colocar o acervo online. Então, ela já tem uma predisposição a aceitar uma parceria com a Wikimedia. E em relação aos participantes, mais para o final a gente vai falar sobre uma equipe wikimedista mínima, mas é interessante comentar que a gente leva um grupo de wikimedistas, um grupo pequeno, mas também a gente tem o interesse de que a população local se interesse em aprender o uso das plataformas e também de como colocar a sua própria cidade nas plataformas, né? E aí a gente entra, então, nos pilares que o WMB pressupõe, né, para a realização de um Wikiocupa, que são 4 atividades principais. A primeira é uma saída fotográfica, a segunda, o mapeamento da cidade, a terceira, uma maratona de edição, aquela que a gente comumente conhece como editatona, e a quarta é a parceria com uma iniciativa global.
Bom, a ideia é que a gente esmiúce agora, ou detalhe um pouco cada um desses pilares, cada uma dessas 4 bases do Wiktakes a City, do Wikiocupa uma cidade. Todas elas, quer dizer, quase todas, parte delas a gente consegue fazer com maior ou menor grau de autonomia, mas a ideia, a riqueza de uma atividade dessa é sempre fazer o máximo possível junto com a população local, junto com pessoas não wikimedistas. Isso, se por um lado nos cria, dificulta um pouco a organização, para que a gente possa conduzir as coisas com mais eficiência, por outro lado, é algo realmente enriquecedor você ver a interação entre wikimedistas mais experientes, junto com pessoas que estão iniciando ou tentando entender como as coisas funcionam dentro dos projetos Wikimedia ou dentro da cultura livre. E esse contato me parece ser um dos principais resultados positivos de um Wikiocupa. Então, não se trata aqui de pensar uma ideia, algo feito de cima para baixo, mas conjuntamente com wikimedistas, conjuntamente com a população local. Passando então aqui para a primeira atividade, uma saída fotográfica. Aí vocês veem no slide, as saídas fotográficas obviamente são cruciais para um Wikiocupa e relativamente fáceis de serem executadas, né? A ideia também não é sair tirando fotos de maneira desregrada da cidade ou aleatória, mas seria interessante a gente observar as listas de bens tombados desses municípios, às vezes até olhando a própria lista do Wikiloves Monuments. Muitos desses municípios, muitas vezes, têm uma lista já pronta. Caso essa lista não exista, dar uma olhada nos bens tombados no nível federal, estadual ou, eventualmente, municipal também. E mesmo que não haja bens tombados, ou haja poucos bens tombados, há muitas coisas que podem ser fotografadas em qualquer município do país. Há sempre praças, parques, prédios públicos relevantes, escolas, certamente alguma característica, uma peculiaridade da cultura local arquitetônica, a fauna, flora, eventualmente alguma espécie endêmica. Há muita coisa que pode ser observada, e a ideia sempre é que esse levantamento seja feito antes das pessoas saírem para fotografar, para que vocês possam direcionar a saída de modo que ela seja mais eficaz e eficiente. Essas saídas também, elas podem se encerrar com uma grande celebração, com um evento, comida, as pessoas comendo em conjunto, e isso certamente favorece os laços daquilo que eu citei no início entre wikimedistas mais experientes, que em geral já sabem o caminho das pedras, sabem como conduzir uma saída fotográfica, mas a ideia é que não seja um evento apenas para wikimedistas, que haja também pessoas novatas, que precisarão ser instruídas, e tirar fotos também, às vezes, é até a parte mais fácil, mas existe uma parte posterior, igualmente importante, que é selecionar as fotos, inserir os metadados com cuidado e carregá-las corretamente no Commons.
Uma coisa também para adicionar, que é importante a gente fazer um contato anterior à visita, para que a gente tenha uma pessoa que abra portas. E isso é literalmente porque a gente também tem o interesse em registrar o interior, principalmente dos bens tombados.
Muito obrigado, Sandra. Ótima lembrança. Há diversos prédios públicos ou bens tombados que podem ser registrados do interior, dependendo se seu país tem uma liberdade de panorama do exterior e da parte interior também, mas, a princípio, é uma ideia formidável aproveitar essa saída fotográfica para ter um acesso privilegiado para bens ou prédios que, em geral, as pessoas não conseguem fotografar tão facilmente. O segundo ponto, que a gente considera também muito importante e crucial para definir um Wiki Takes a City, um Wiki ocupa uma cidade, é a questão do mapeamento. Vocês devem saber que os projetos Wikimedia não têm um projeto específico de mapas, mas a gente conta com o apoio de um projeto próximo, de um projeto primo, digamos assim, dos projetos Wikimedia, também cultuado aí por boa parte da comunidade Wikimedia, que é o OpenStreetMap. Trata-se de uma base de dados geográficos que alimenta diversos projetos de conhecimento livre, inclusive os projetos Wikimedia e a própria Wikipedia. Então, o próprio OpenStreetMap é conhecido, de certa maneira, como uma espécie de Wikipédia dos mapas. Se vocês não o conhecem, recomendo que vocês googlem OpenStreetMap e conheçam o projeto. De modo geral, no caso do Brasil, pelo menos, todas as cidades já têm as cidades brasileiras têm a sua estrutura básica, pelo menos, devidamente mapeada no projeto. Então, no caso de um Wiki Takes a City, de um Wiki ocupa uma cidade, a gente busca aprimorar, refinar esse mapeamento. Então, a ideia é acessar a cidade dentro do OpenStreetMap e ver se os prédios, os bens tombados estão todos indicados, estão todos mapeados, se as praças, parques, reservas florestais, pontes, monumentos, é possível mapear monumentos. Aliás, o OpenStreetMap permite um detalhamento de mapas muito grande. É possível mapear bancos e lixeiras e postes de iluminação, por exemplo. Mas, no caso do Wiki Takes a City, a gente busca, pelo menos, cotejar, né, verificar todo o mapeamento dos bens tombados e monumentos da cidade. Muito pode ser feito, portanto, a ideia, tudo vai depender da quantidade de pessoas envolvidas, se as pessoas estão familiarizadas com o projeto ou não, e lembrando também que é possível vincular os itens mapeados, as coisas mapeadas no OpenStreetMap, com itens dentro do Wikidata. Isso permite que os projetos, digamos, enxerguem um ao outro. Dentro do próprio Wikidata existe se vocês digitarem Wikidata, OpenStreetMap, vocês vão ver uma série de projetos que buscam fortalecer essas pontes entre os dois projetos. No caso do Wikitakes a City, conduzido pelo WMB, a gente não se esquece dessa parte dos mapas. Sandra?
Vamos lá, vamos falar de editatona. Então, como a maioria das pessoas que está acompanhando essa sessão deve saber, a editatona ela serve para que a gente amplie a informação livre e disponível sobre o município, e isso inclui tanto a criação de novos verbetes quanto o aprimoramento daqueles que já existem. E essa lista, a gente gera uma lista antes do evento de potenciais artigos a serem trabalhados e podem ser trabalhados tanto no evento, mas aqueles que não se consegue tempo hábil de melhorar ficam como uma lista para melhoria posterior. E também um dos grandes ganhos das editatonas é mostrar para a população local que a Wikipédia é um ambiente aberto para colaboração e ensinar os requisitos mínimos para que a pessoa contribua de forma responsável e que suas contribuições permaneçam na Wikipédia. Perder o medo de editar, na verdade é isso. E o quarto ponto é que sempre buscamos o estabelecimento de uma parceria GLAM com alguma instituição cultural da cidade, de modo que o seu acervo seja digitalizado e incluído no Wikicommons, principalmente, né? E se os dados metadados forem robustos, a gente também inclui no Wikidata. Então, essa preparação do Wikiocupa, ela vai levar por volta de 1 a 2 meses, e a ideia é que a gente encontre uma instituição de pequeno porte, mas que seja objetiva e eficiente. Para essas parcerias, foi desenvolvido um projeto chamado Museu Portátil, onde se buscou entender como seria um kit básico e com baixo custo que cumprisse a função de digitalizar objetos 3D e 2D de diferentes tamanhos e também algumas indicações de como fazer o uso desse kit, como organizar os metadados, como subir isso nas plataformas Wikimedia. E o manual está disponível na Wiki, e depois vocês podem acessar a partir desse slide que a gente está mostrando, clicando na capa do manual. Então, a ideia é que seja um kit e mais um conjunto de capacitações para que qualquer instituição GLAM do Brasil, de qualquer tamanho, ela consiga ser autônoma para fazer a digitalização e o upload do seu acervo.
Bom, Passando aqui para a questão do número de participantes, é um número bastante subjetivo, a ideia sempre das pessoas é que haja o maior número de participantes possível, e, portanto, a ideia é que sempre a gente pense na presença também de wikimedistas experientes para dar suporte a todos esses participantes. Então, deixando de lado a subjetividade do número dos participantes e pensando, então, no tamanho de uma equipe, dos organizadores, na verdade, né? Vai variar, mais uma vez, de acordo com o caso, mas considerando o que ocupa numa cidade de pequeno ou médio porte, nós aqui do WMB entendemos que uma estrutura mínima para a organização deveria ter, numa saída fotográfica, pelo menos 2 pessoas experientes, porque é comum também que haja, eventualmente, locais importantes a serem fotografados distantes um do outro. E se você for pensar que um Wikiocupa pode ser um evento de 1 ou 2 dias, por exemplo, uma saída fotográfica num único dia, de uma única pessoa experiente conduzindo, ficaria muito limitada. A questão do mapeamento, como a gente pensa que é um mapeamento, muitas vezes, mais um refinamento de mapeamento, a gente pode delegar isso, a princípio, para deixar isso nas mãos de uma pessoa experiente, que pode ser apoiada por outras pessoas participantes mais inexperientes, mas a ideia de fazer um cotejamento, né, um refinamento, na verdade, de um mapa já pré-estabelecido. Esse tipo de atividade, em geral, a gente entende que pode ser mais facilmente conduzido por uma única pessoa, pensando numa estrutura mínima. Lembrem-se disso, a escala pode subir caso os desafios que vocês ponderem em outros municípios sejam maiores. No caso de uma editatona, imaginando aí que a ideia é a gente reunir um número de participantes de, sei lá, pelo menos 5, 10 pessoas, 15, seria bom ter 2 pessoas experientes para receber as pessoas, tirar dúvidas de edição. A ideia sempre é que as pessoas tenham prazer na atividade e não pensem essa atividade como uma tarefa enfadonha ou cumprir tarefas delegadas. Então, a ideia sempre é mostrar para as pessoas que o ambiente de edição é algo onde as pessoas podem não só contribuir com o mundo do conhecimento livre, mas também se divertir e fazer isso de uma maneira agradável. E, por fim, a parte menos autônoma e um pouco mais difícil, na minha modesta opinião, de um Wikiocupa é estabelecer uma iniciativa GLAM, né? Então, uma iniciativa GLAM, em geral, é algo que leva-se muito tempo para ser construído. Quando a gente pensa no Wiktakes, em geral, a gente pensa em iniciativas GLAM, eventualmente de pequeno porte, ou algo que a gente possa conduzir ao longo de 1 ou 2 meses, no máximo, pelo menos para ser uma entrada, digamos assim, de uma instituição cultural do município no universo Wiki. Então, para isso, obviamente, a gente precisa, considerando como uma parceria, de um lado, a instituição cultural em si, acompanhada de uma pessoa experiente em parcerias GLAM, em digitalização, para que a parceria possa florescer no curto intervalo de tempo em que acontece o Wiktakes a City. Sandra?
E o WMB já realizou 3 Wikiocupa, os 3 no estado de São Paulo, em Santana de Parnaíba, Jundiaí, em Itu. Aqui no slide vocês têm os links para as páginas de GLAM dessas ocupações. E no dia de hoje, que a gente está veiculando essa sessão da Wikimania, iniciou o Wikiocupa Santa Leopoldina, que é o primeiro fora do estado de São Paulo, que é no estado que a gente diz que a Wiki escolheu o WMB escolheu para amar nesse ano de 2022, que é o Espírito Santo, e a gente tem para a realização desse Wikiocupa um financiamento internacional da Foundation dentro da Wikimania. Então, estamos muito felizes em ter essa oportunidade de realizar o Wiktakes fora do estado de São Paulo, e o acompanhamento das atividades que a gente realizou ao longo desse dia e vai realizar amanhã também, pode ser feito pelas redes sociais, tanto do WMB quanto as redes oficiais do evento da Wikimania a nível internacional. Então, agradecemos pela atenção de vocês e ficam os nossos contatos para qualquer dúvida que vocês tenham. Célio?
Obrigado, pessoal, e nos vemos na Wikimania.